Welcome to the Rising Consciousness Show, 20 minutes of soulful insights and powerful tools to elevate your life experience and create with higher clarity, intention, and vision. I'm Tara Antler, intuitive healer and soul coach.
And I'm King Gabriel, spiritual teacher and practitioner. And we are the co-founders of Ascension Academy of Light,
a global center for spiritual growth, intuitive healing, and soul alignment.
Get ready to blast off.
So grateful to be here. Welcome everyone to a live episode of the Rising Consciousness Show. We have a very special guest here with us. And we were just talking about, some of the technological glitches that are happening, based on some of these astrological configurations that are happening.
Yeah.
So I want to officially welcome George Lewis to the show. And George and I met about a month ago, but I had seen his face and his energy around for a number of years because we've been in Sasha Stone's world for a long, long time. We actually had a lot of time with Sasha and Bacalar. And then it just was this moment. I felt this energy and I'm like, I need to connect with George. I don't know why. I just need to connect. And so we got this connection going and I had the most amazing, invigorating astrological reading and intuitive insight. And it was so nice to be able to have that space held for me because many of you know, Gabriel and I hold that space so much for other people. And it was so refreshing because everything that we spoke about in that reading aligned with what I was already experiencing, but I was having one of those moments that I'm like, really? Like, come on now. It can't be like this, right? And then when you hear the astrological configuration and it makes sense and it all puts it into place, it was so refreshing. And so, George, I am so grateful that you are here. And I want to share a little bit about who you are. You have a beautiful website, by the way. When I was on here and I was watching this swirl of energy, we're going to post a website for everybody. You got to go just check out his website because when you're on the little scroll, especially on a laptop, it's got this beautiful light streak that goes through. Feels like you're painting with colors on your fingertips. It's beautiful. But George Lewis is an astrologer, a sound activator, a multidisciplinary artist whose work bridges the mystic and the creative. And you're going to see in his background is a creative piece that he actually did himself, which is beautiful. We were stunned because it looked like a photograph. He's based in the US, although he is in England right now. He travels extensively, not just on this plane of existence, the 3D. He is traveling in the realms, as we say, in the dimensional fields. And his life's work is really rooted in guiding people into their passion, inspiring people to really have the highest, most authentic, beautiful expression of themselves. And through the work that he's doing, especially we're going to talk about healing with water and sound and being able to bring in the visual, but also the energetics and the light. We were having a really beautiful conversation about light, which you all know that's our jam. We love speaking about light. And he's a very powerful teacher and he has a very extensive background in meditation and the healing arts. And he really knows how to help people recalibrate and really align to the highest vision. And today we're going to be talking about all of that in a moment. But George, thank you so much for being here with us.
It's a real pleasure, and thank you so much for having me on today. You two are just the embodiment of the dance of the duality of the sacred masculine and sacred feminine. So it's a real pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful. And we're going to be diving into all different streams today. We're literally going to be traveling along the light stream today, and we're going to be tuning in. We did a little intention setting. We want to touch on what's happening right now astrologically, because I think a lot of people are confused as to what's going on. There's a lot that's churning, external, also internal. And so kick us off. Tell us what is happening that people, if you could sum it up to go, this is what's going on. People go, oh, totally makes sense. What would you say?
I mean, what's interesting, just before we went live, there was a little glitch, wasn't there? And it kind of felt a bit like a Mercury retrograde. And I just happened to notice that the moon right now is 18 degrees Capricorn, making an inconjunct, which is 150 degrees, which isn't too easy, with the sun at 13, 14 degrees Gemini. And so that creates a bit of a glitch. The moon isn't so happy in Capricorn. The positive is Venus is making an opposition. So as long as we breathe, we did this beautiful intention beforehand, we allow the Venusian, the Venus archetype, to come through patience, through love, and through beauty. The moon in Capricorn then can get the job done, and suffice to say, everything now flows. In some ways, the world today is really leaning into the acceptance that how we perceive the world was the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we can truly let go, I've been profoundly uh, forced into this in my private life with my children in particular. One of them, as I share privately off air before, we are all being forced in different ways. And when we allow that lesson, and we all have unique soul contracts, unique
Mm-hmm.
lessons, but ultimately they're similar because it's how we journey on the macro level out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. But what does that mean? How do we
Mm-hmm.
journey to higher realms of consciousness with authenticity? I mean, the Christ archetype for me is so much about freedom,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of Jesus didn't come to this planet to start a religion. You know, Christ's earliest followers called it the path. It was a direction, not a doctrine. It was about
Mm-hmm.
sovereignty. It was about freedom towards consciousness. And we're relearning that. We're remembering that truth. We're learning to recognize the inversion. You see, the
Mm-hmm.
age of Pisces, sadly, has largely been the negative interpretation of the archetype, meaning we've really been led down the psychic garden path towards the inversion, the manipulation, the control of the psyche. And we're
Mm-hmm.
beginning to see that and allow our consciousness to come out where we can connect, as you two have done so well with your amazing network and congregation, or community is a much better word.
Mm-hmm.
Community, because we're all partakers in this divine magic, and the more we can breathe into that, we realize the kingdom of heaven's within and not
Mm-hmm.
without.
Yeah, 100%. Anything you want to add to that?
No, no, no. I agree. I
Mm-hmm.
agree to what you're saying there. The whole idea before of this one individual, because you mentioned Jesus directly. This one individual who has walked a specific path, and you are to just hold on to that quote and try to make it in based on his merit alone, right? It was kind of silly because there wasn't room for development there. There's just blind following, right?
Right.
And in this
Yes.
age, I really see the opportunity for people to start to step
Mm-hmm.
up and be like, whoa, we can do that. We can actually become more. We can become better. We can overlook some of the errors that we've made and become more of ourselves. We can be like that. And I believe that's the message. The message is you too can do this. You can do great things. You're
Mm-hmm.
amazing. That's what would be said. You guys are amazing. You just don't know how amazing you are. Let's get there. Let's do it together. You know? So it's amazing that, not amazing, but it's natural. It's
Mm-hmm.
natural that this comes about at this time, and that now people are able to hear that and move towards it without fear,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
right? There's less and less fear involved in that move now. And so it's just like a wonderful experience to be here for this event.
Mm-hmm.
It's an event. Yeah.
It really is.
Yes.
I like that because even if it's hard at times, I mean, I speak for myself. For me, the third density frequency has always been very hard for me. I have to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I know I chose it.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the beginning, maybe was the word, but ultimately in the beginning, the logos was the frequency, was the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
And,
right. The light.
part of why I think there is this connection is because we're both, all of us, and your community is very fascinated by light. Because what does that
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Symbolically, light is a sound, it is a frequency.
Hmm.
And when we can partake in that, the epigenetics becomes very clear as far as our
Mm-hmm.
biography becomes our biology, and the whole notion of health, wellness,
Mm-hmm.
just goes into a totally different time capsule, a different time trajectory. And we start, this is the epigenetics, we start co-creating with the
Mm-hmm.
universe as opposed to being victims. I mean, actually, that reminds me of the four levels. It's about for freedom. The first level is it's always about things happening to me in
Right.
that sense of I'm in separation and I'm in resistance and I'm suffering. This is where our suffering occurs. And we have to move out of to me into by me. And this is
Mm-hmm.
level two out of four, which is
Mm-hmm.
gaining a little bit more power, gaining some power over your perspective. And ultimately, we end up in level three, which is through me, and you're the
Yes.
antennae. Consciousness flows through you. You're actively participating within the flow. And then ultimately, you end up being it's as me.
As you.
Where
Hmm.
there's no more duality,
Mm-hmm.
and in some ways, you two, I feel, just meeting you both online today, together for the first time, obviously on a physical level, it's rather delicious. Obviously, we all know that. But on a sort of subliminal, esoteric level, Gabriel, you're very, very the sacred masculine. Less is more, and the stability, positive Saturn. And then we have the truth, fairy, uh, creator, uh, dancer, shining,
Yes, yes.
and it's sparkly.
Yes.
And together we're asmi because the duality is understood, and the false duality, the matrix collapses because we are
Mhm.
total creators within it. And that to me is so beautiful because I can teach as well because I'm practicing it. This is what we're here to do.
Yes, 100%. I love
Love
that.
that.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
reflecting that. It's very beautiful. And it's very poetic in how you describe things too. And, there's something very poetic about the moment we all arrived here. I always come back to, and this is why I love the reflection of life and the stars and who and what we are and internally and the whole part of ourselves. I come back to that moment, when cells come together to create the spark of life that creates a human, a baby. And I love this because I don't know if I told you, but I studied anatomy and physiology and sciences and health sciences in university. And I was fascinated by DNA and the human body. And I remember learning about there were these 12 strands of DNA. And according to science, they only focused on two because the other 10 strands, and I remember putting up my hand in an auditorium full of like 1,200 people. Well, what about the other 10 strands? Oh, that's just junk DNA. And we don't pay attention to that. And that got something rolling inside of me where I was thinking,
Sure.
there's no way 10 of these 12 are junk DNA. And then when it comes down to the actual life force being created, the unification, the two coming together to create new life, that spark of light that actually emerges. And of course, science would call that, this is potassium mixing with
It's
whatever
actual light. It's actual light. Yeah. Yeah.
that's coming together that
Yeah.
creates the spark that initiates the next thing.
Yes.
Mm.
And so for me, when I think about when we are moving through our own personal trials, tribulations, our growth, our expansion, we will go in and then we're going to reemerge, but there will be a new spark of light that something happens, And so I'd love to hear your perspective on that because we were talking behind the scenes about light and your remembrance of where you come from.
Yeah, I mean, light for me as an artist, I was born an artist. I mean, I think we're all born artists. I mean, I
Mm,
genuinely believe that. I mean, I'm a musician as well as a chorister at school. So to me, light is in the voice, light is in the dance,
mm,
light is, for me is in the painting as a visual painter, artist. But it's interesting with light though and DNA because I love symbols. I like reading everything symbolically. Remember, the opposite of symbolic is diabolic. Symbolic
mhm,
means to bring together.
mm,
Diabolic means to split asunder. And I'm curious by the last post of Q. I'm curious by it. Again, I'm here to ask questions, not to
mhm,
jump into judgment and to be a parrot of the mainstream media. And that's created some discomfort amongst my peers since 2016, since the timeline changed.
mhm,
Notwithstanding that, the last post of Q was what's in our DNA? Who put it there? Why?
mm,
Is it to do with our ascension? So for me, symbolically, when we can tap
mhm,
into the light and read
mhm,
through epigenetics and refocus our attention,
mhm,
our creative attention towards the light within our DNA code, something miraculously happens because we know that when we're all parents here, that
mhm,
miracle time of the birth of our children, we've been very privileged and supported to have that experience in the 3D, but something very alchemical happens. And part of
mhm.
this journey into the age of Aquarius, for sure, is that remembrance. And
Yeah.
it's partly Atlantean, Lemurian. I don't want to get too caught up in
Mhm,
those languages because it's not so important. And we all have different ways in to understand.
mhm,
But ultimately, it is a massive time of remembrance of our power because
mhm.
it has been subdued, it has been suppressed
Mhm.
deliberately.
Yes.
But also we've allowed it to happen somehow,
Yeah.
some way too. It's
Yeah.
both. And
Yeah.
this is the great power coming back in that here through people like yourselves and your community. We're rediscovering it, but we're giving each other the strength of numbers because it's so important community. The ancient Indians
Mhm,
talked about the Sangha. It's not just the practice, the community. We're so communal. as
Mm-hmm.
souls incarnate on this planet, that we
Mm-hmm.
need the community. That's why they split it 6 feet away, etc. We know it, you know it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's
And
right.
exactly. And I think what I love about you guys is there isn't the forgetfulness of
Mm-hmm.
of the hot potato. You know, we're going
Mm-hmm.
to ask the questions, but we're not going to dwell in the rabbit
That's
hole.
right.
But we're going to say, "Oh yes," and then we're going to
Yes.
move on. And that's, I
Yes.
think, that's what we're here to do
Yeah.
together today. You know.
And I
Mhm.
believe that that's such an important piece because without that knowing or remembering or the observation even of it to say, okay, this is what I see, this is what I remember, then have that, oh, something's off here, and then come back to our power and recreate and create again, and keep going no matter what, even if the outside world reflects back to something that you're like, well, that's not really what I really wanted to see. Okay, great, let me create again. Because speaking of DNA and epigenetics, I was in this class many years ago. I must have been 26, 27. I was floored by this woman, and she was talking about activating DNA. And I was like, okay, now we're talking. I'm like, this is the other 10 strands of DNA. And I literally watched people in the class change their hair color within days. I watched people erase lines, fine lines on their faces. I watched people, I mean, I didn't have any health issues, but I watched people heal their health issues just by activating light and frequency into the DNA. So from that perspective, I remember so many walls burst in that moment, and I just knew everything is possible. Everything is possible. Whatever we want to create, whatever we're
Yep,
conflicted with or we're confronted with, we can move that and we can reset
we
that
can.
energy.
And
And that excites me.
it really excites me, and also your offering of community. And in my own way, I'm trying to do that because we so respond to that positive frequency that comes in because we're mirrors to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, the embodiment of it is so important. So even if we're looking at the rabbit hole and it can pull us down, I mean, me coming back to England, it is challenging in many ways for
Mm-hmm.
lots of reasons, which I think many of your community will understand without me going into it. It's like times like this. It's probably why I'm so looking forward to being able to co-create, even if we're using technology here, which is so powerful, to share the great potential, to remind us of what we're doing as we enter the age of Aquarius, because it really is happening. And the astrology does really support it because all the outer planets are making what's called trines and sextiles.
Mm-hmm.
Trines and sextiles, which are 120 degrees, 60 degrees respectively, that's a very benevolent, supportive music of the spheres. Remember, math is light, is beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at a harmonic in the cosmos at the moment that is deeply supportive to our evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's different, say, for example, with the last Uranus in Gemini, the Second World War, the one before that, Civil War, one before that, Revolutionary Wars, because they were squares and oppositions. And here we have all the outer planets making these delicious trines and sextiles in new signs, especially now with Uranus in Gemini. It's almost like an exaltation, massive amount of disclosure, massive amount of new technology, but it's going to be supportive to humanity. I know it doesn't look like it, and the bullhorn of the mainstream media will tell you very hard that it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be doom and gloom because that's their agenda. Well,
Yeah.
actually, the cosmos, you connect to the cosmos, I connect to the cosmos, we connect to the cosmos. It's going to be good. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
supportive. And we're going to have freedom and consciousness on our planet in a way that we haven't in the collective memory ever. We have forgotten what that feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can feel that.
yeah. And I love that you say forgotten in what you're saying there because it's something we did once know.
Mm-hmm.
I can attest to that directly. For whatever reason, I have memory of right before this, right? And what was right before this was a place where there was light. Like we were literally light. I was there, and there was one exactly like me. And in that space, there was some planning that went in for whatever reason. I remember looking at shapes in particular, geometry, looking at things. However, the dimension was, I can't even understand what I saw now, to tell you the truth, at this point. But back then, it was known, it was just understood. And then the shift in vibration, whatever that shift was, that led to that little change, the difference between the one like myself and I, caused this experience. That's how I see it from my point of view, right? but then there was a forgetfulness as well because the things that I knew, like the thing that you're speaking about in terms of the alignment of
Mhm.
everything, I knew the points and all that, and I remember doing things like that at that point. But now it's just like a shadow of a memory,
Yeah.
and it's there. But here I am and listening to this, and you're activating something in me through that conversation as well, because I know that there was planning that went into all that. And I knew that I was going down to three. This is what I do remember. I was taking a dip, and I don't know if I should publicly broadcast this, but here we go. Either way, it's what's being said. But I remember making the decision to go down to three in order to elevate to
Yeah.
nine, because the only way that you could go up was to go down. That's what I
Yeah.
knew for sure. So I was scared to go down, to be honest, at
Mhm.
one point, but I made the dip anyway, knowing that it was the way up. The only way up was down. So we had to go down.
It,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
really resonates that with me, and thank you for
Yeah.
sharing
Okay.
that because
Yeah.
well, it's very very beautiful you sharing that. It's also Tesla 369, the secrets
Yeah.
of the universe, harmony,
Yeah.
harmonics, frequency, vibration. I mean, it's time travel 369. They're very important, those codes together, and I think in order to go down to three, you get the engine room because you fully
That's
understand
sort of the
duality.
thinking. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
really understand because it's very it's not planet air or fire, this place. It's planet
Mhm.
Earth. It's very dense. It's very
Yes.
dual,
Yeah.
and we've got to learn. And this is why plant medicine sometimes, when done correctly, can help start, jump, speed up the catalyst of understanding why we're here to work with our natural biorhythms. We are here to be a biological divine species. We're not here to be
Mhm.
synthetic um, hybrids in that
Mhm.
regard. I feel,
I agree
and
with you. I'm like, I'm not.
I really, and yet there's an Atlantean side to me, but the
Mhm.
positive of it is technology supports we the people, the divine
Right.
blueprint. It's so
Right.
important now. And then it's very benevolent. The
Mhm.
opposite, of course, is the negative, which is the homogenetic transhuman agenda, which we're here, and you're talking about the light. It's also reinvestigating some big issues. I mean, what
Mhm.
does, the Luciferian, which is the morning star of Venus,
Mhm.
in of itself, when it's
Yes.
pulled away, it's nothing to do with Satan. It's nothing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
I want we the
Light.
people. I want we the people, all of us, to be able to have
Yeah.
access to this light. Otherwise, for me, it's not why I'm here. It's why I
Mhm.
choose America, not Europe, philosophically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with
I
you.
hear you.
How many times have you and I had that
We
conversation,
have.
eh,
We have.
about
Yes.
that energy? Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly what you just said. And there's so many confusion points and
Yeah.
disillusion and illusion and all the things. And I've always been able to see that when things look really messy and murky like that, we just have to let's start to detangle it a little bit. And then let's look at it. Like, what are
Yeah.
we dealing with? And
Yeah.
it's the same thing when we're healing the body. I remember that for the first time when I saw like a tumor, for example, and I was like, what is this energetically? And I asked because I didn't know, I wasn't trained. And I remember my higher self coming in and saying, well, we're going to open this up energetically and we're going to detangle it and we're going to look at it and it would pull it apart. And then at least we knew what we were dealing with. And you could see the belief systems and all the things that went in there to create that and then dismantle, dissolve, release. And I feel we're dealing with the exact same thing, whether it's a consciousness, whether it's a certain way that humanity has lived, certain teachings that have come in. We're dismantling. And I think you and I were talking about this, right? Like this is actually showing in the astrological configuration right now, too.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which went extant late February this year, is still playing out, even if the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune is jumped to over 10 degrees. It's massive.
Mm-hmm.
And how I'd say this succinctly is that Saturn hasn't been at this weakest part of the zodiac at the zero point of Aries, which when it hit Neptune
Mm-hmm.
for the first time in 6,000 years at the zero point of Aries, it's massive. Saturn is the law, is the planet of structure and control. It's
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
that Great Britain is a Saturn-ruled country. It's just let that sink in. Great
Mm-hmm.
Britain was formed uh, when Saturn when in Capricorn,
Mm-hmm.
and Saturn rules Capricorn.
Okay.
And isn't it interesting that the United States was created in opposition? She's a
Mm-hmm.
Cancerian country.
Mm-hmm.
You
Oh,
see,
that's
to me,
fascinating.
this isn't accidental. I know it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And what's more important is the United States, when it was formed in 1776 on July 4th, both benefics, which are the positive planets of Jupiter and Venus, were conjunct the Sun in Cancer. And right now we have a Venus Jupiter conjunction for the next month in
Wow.
Cancer, right up to July 4th, and hence the 250th anniversary. Please let that sink in.
Yeah, that's huge.
That we are dealing with a cosmology that is
Mm-hmm.
so much bigger than what we have hitherto thought, because
Mm.
the powers have wished us to become ignorant and divorced from this ancient knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
My
Mm-hmm.
humble offering is, as I've learnt in this life, is to reconnect with this powerful tool, because
Mm-hmm.
then we the people, are connected to the divine language, the blueprint, the music of the spheres, to quote Pythagoras. You then can be an activator, a co-creator, as opposed to a victim tool. No, you are now the victor, not the victim.
Mm-hmm.
That is just delightful.
It is delightful. And I actually feel since we've come back to Canada, I keep feeling this that right now, especially because they just said that Canada is officially in a recession and people are freaking out. Like I say that with a smile on my face, but it's because this all has to unravel.
It does.
And people have to see that there's more yet to come. But this rebirth, it has to happen.
Mm,
It has to all
mm.
unravel now. And this is a very powerful time. And
And it just
it times itself so well.
it does, because the notion of disclosure,
Hmm.
Uranus, for example, is always the planet of innovation. Uranus, so I'd say to your community, where is Uranus in your chart? Uranus has
Hmm.
just moved into Gemini. It was in Taurus, it's moved to Gemini. It's there until 2032, 2033. So we've got a good chunk of time to enjoy this. When Uranus moved into my ninth house 12 years ago, it activated my ninth house.
Hmm.
Astrology came in through a mentor. That's just one interpretation of the archetype. So Uranus collectively is inventions, is
Hmm.
technology, is communication.
Hmm.
And with the Sun there right now, conjunct Uranus, we're really focusing on it. So disclosure also is a big part of it, especially with
Hmm.
Pluto making a trine in Aquarius. Massive amount of disclosure coming out, which is actually supporting the public in her awakening. Because I would argue that this is part of our divine blueprint. The great unraveling, the great awakening, the great remembrance is playing out, but it can't happen overnight because we'd all go mad, me included. It
Hmm.
has to be drip, drip, and at times it speeds up, like now,
Hmm.
but we've actually been doing this for quite a while.
Hmm.
We've really been doing the heavy lifting in the Americas since 2016. In Europe, it's a bit slower, hence it just seems slower.
Hmm.
But ultimately, the humans are beginning, we the people are beginning to awaken to the great lie. And it doesn't matter. Some of us will fixate on the great ice wall of Antarctica and the hidden
Hmm.
technologies, the stargates. I'm just greedy. I'm kind of
I
interested in an
love that
awful lot of.
stuff.
Exactly. But I offer this because I'm new to your community. If we can stay in the puer aeternus, if we can stay in the archetype of the child, think of the sun card in tarot with the resplendent boy or girl, naked on the back of the horse with the sun on his back, walking off. It's almost like the fool card. It's the sense of we are curious. We have two ears,
Yes.
one mouth. We don't know. The freedom of being able to look you in the eye and to say,
Hmm.
I don't know, but isn't it fun to discover, to
Yes.
rediscover?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. This is the conversation we have with the kids a lot because they ask really big questions. And
Yes.
sometimes
We have to say,
we
I
have
don't
to,
know.
I'm not sure about that.
And
And then
then
we'll
we
say,
explore.
what do you
Yep,
feel
yep.
about that? And they sit there
Yeah,
and they ponder and they get curious. And I love the answers that they come with because it
so
is that
cool.
innocence and
Yeah.
it brings us
And
back
it
to
gives
the,
us new
yes.
perspectives too. They come up with answers that we would never think of on the spot. So
Mhm.
it's so great to have the diverse perspectives in
Yeah.
that way, for
Yeah.
real. And that being said, I want to jump
Hmm.
into something. I want to ask you a
Yeah.
question here. Because as I got activated a little earlier in the conversation, I remember something that I want to know if it's reflected in the numerology that you've observed thus far, right? Or the astrology, sorry, not numerology.
Well, both. We can do both.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I have seen, or what I've observed, or what I knew, was there was this place that we had reached, or the energy that I was observing had reached where there was a ceiling. It seemed like there was a ceiling. And this was the difference between what I call eight and nine in my understanding, right? I've never looked anywhere else to find out what that is. This is just my understanding of things. Eight to nine was where I was going. And I had to go down to three to do it. But in the going down to three, what I understood was that it was a scary place, yes. I could forget and all of that, and that's where the fear came in. But in being here and elevating, which is the journey that many people are on, elevating human consciousness, a lot of musicians and artists are doing that through
Mm-hmm.
their works and through the light that they put forth to move the lower levels or where people tend to be hanging out up, right? Because if you move that up, then everything is moving up because I see it as a whole, right? So I understood that in order for me to elevate, which is really what it is, everybody had to elevate. And so I believe that that's why a lot of souls have come in to move this particular, if you think of it as movement at all, although movement might be just a concept that I hold on to. But either way, moving up the whole means moving the lower to highers so that as the lowers move to higher, the higher gets higher as well, and the entire organism or whatever it is moves higher. So I
Mm-hmm.
understood that in taking the journey, but I also knew that going down into that space meant
Yeah.
forgetting and meant. So I want to know in your astrology and what you've
Mm.
seen thus far, because I have no idea of what time this would have taken or anything like that when I took this journey. I don't know if this is my 10th or 50 millionth life. I have no idea, right? But I want to know in your charts if you've seen anything that can indicate that motion from that one level into the higher spheres for us as a whole.
Mm. I would say for me, the biggest one has been the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at the 0 point of Aries, because
Okay.
Saturn is, I mean, David Icke's spoken for decades about the Saturn lunar matrix,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and Chronos is the Greek for Saturn,
Okay.
the Lord of
Time.
Time.
Yeah.
It's where the
Lord
word
of time.
chronology comes from.
Yeah.
When Neptune, which collapses time, Neptune is antithetical to Saturn in many ways because Neptune, in its pure form, is totally without boundaries. It's pure Christ consciousness, it's pure love. When that coincided in February this year with Saturn at the weakest point in Aries, that is just the crumbling of the three-dimensional matrix,
Mm-hmm.
literally.
Okay.
And Christ consciousness, Neptune, you could say, coming in. Now, for people at a lower frequency who are still not integrating or wishing to through fear, that Neptune's going to end up being confusion, delusion, suicide,
Okay.
self-undoing, all those archetypes which are very real for Neptune. And we've all been there, by the way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm increasingly honest about this.
Yeah.
Um, is I think I'm able to be relatively authentic in my sharing and teaching because I understand those negative
Mm-hmm.
Neptunes very, very significantly on this planet. I really profoundly understand why certain humans do choose to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I have
Yeah,
great
it's
compassion for
challenging.
that.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
deeply challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be an artist if I
Yeah.
if I didn't.
Yeah.
But
I remember moments like that too, you know, when I was younger though,
Yeah.
because everything didn't seem the way it was supposed to be. I
That's
just
it.
remember that feeling.
Yes.
Things aren't, this is not how it was supposed to be.
no,
I
that's right.
remember that feeling. And so early on, I remember feeling out of sorts or that something was off, that I didn't belong here. And that was very distinct. And then as things were spiritually opening, and I think I was busting through those barriers very early on. It was confusing, exciting, and very liberating.
Yes.
Very, very liberating. And so for anyone that's still in that middle ground, just know that as you keep moving through those layers of consciousness, the feeling of freedom and liberation and expansion and your expression is like, it is phenomenal. I think it's the feeling that we all know inherently, that we're like, I remember vaguely there was a time or a moment where it was very free, and it is. It's all right here, but we all individually, we need to do this inner, whatever you want to call it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's
so
important.
the other thing is, I mean, Gabriel's language is obviously going to be unique to you, Gabriel,
Mhm.
to him. So I'm always trying to find bridges in this sense because people are going to have different ways in to that truth.
Yes.
And in your case, it's really much this conversation between the eighth and the ninth, tenth dimension, I sense, which is rather beautiful. It resonates with me, but that's not my language right now. It might become so, it
Yeah.
might not. But the point is, when we understand the matrix of the cosmology, the control within
Mm-hmm.
the firmament, how the planets, even if they're not planets, someone might say, oh, because of flat Earth, they're energy systems, they're
Mm-hmm.
points of interest, they're points of energy, of frequency. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Venus carries a frequency, Jupiter carries a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it doesn't matter what cosmology you believe in.
Yeah.
Let's at least understand the forces that are behind the planets. And that to me is
Yeah.
truthful and helpful. And by understanding that, we can then go to the next level and, in a way, collapse the duality, the falsity, the lies, the deceit and control, the false Saturn matrix that people like Laura Eisenhower speak so well about.
Yes.
In order for us to go, because once we go beyond into the fourth, fifth, actually, the astrology that exists becomes less relevant. I'm also
Mm-hmm.
very happy to say that because
Mm-hmm.
if I got too attached, too addicted,
That's right.
too defined, because of course one's soul incarnate is not one's belief. Again, back to
Mm-hmm.
the freedom. Here we are, we're moving through these, we're trying to learn. I
Mm-hmm.
long to be able to drop the astrology because it has its limitations. Some
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
people
Yeah.
can tap straight into the Akashic, straight into all the fields, into the luminaries. The sun is a massive Stargate portal. And
Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
we're
agree.
beginning to learn that. And so that's the interest, the curiosity. So I haven't really properly answered Gabriel's question, but in my own way, maybe I'm opening it up to say that when we have the intention of the heart, which is the toroidal field, to journey in, that's the Stargate. And that's how you go into the eighth, ninth, tenth dimension. And someone like, for example, Alex Collier, who's a kind of mentor to mine. I've been on his show a few times. He's an Andromedan contactee, and they're all eighth, ninth, tenth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can really, that's how I get to Gabriel's heart, is because that resonates with me, even if it's
Yeah.
not my language. I'm probably still, working in the fifth with the Palladians. I'm a bit
No,
of a
no,
kid.
funny enough, I just want to say this in there, right? Not to really interrupt you, but
Mm.
I don't even use the terminology of dimensions so
No,
much.
no.
I just understand it, and I deliberately, on purpose, do not adopt that because that would be somebody else's understanding of it
Yes.
and not mine directly. Mine was just a number. I just know eight, nine, and it didn't
Yeah.
have that idea of necessarily dimensions. It's almost like climbing some sort of spiritual ladder in some way. And a ladder is me simplifying it once again, right? But I understand it in a different way.
But
Yet I
nine,
might, yeah, yeah,
but not nine really appeals to me, as we said
yes,
earlier,
yes,
because if you to know the rules of the universe, you think 369. To me, that's
yeah,
kind of the Holy Trinity, actually.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, not exclusively,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
but it's like that journey work from three,
yeah,
6 to 9 is
Mm-hmm.
portals and stargates, is
yeah,
activation, is collapsing of ti old timelines, is black holes, white holes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And that's what I believe we're in right now is exactly that. And
You
I'd
thought
love,
about it too.
well, yeah, I'd
Okay,
love to
yeah,
touch on that because,
yeah,
we've had many conversations about this and I just love where this is all going
yeah.
because
We just really exploring it. Yeah, yeah,
many years ago, I think it was maybe 2020, 21, I kept having these dreams where I'd go into these spaces. I think I might have shared this with you, where I'd go in and we were retrieving people from the confinements and context of the box. It was always a box, a complete cube we were going into.
It
Sometimes
is
Aria would
really,
travel with
yeah,
me and we'd be
yeah,
going through and I said, don't get stuck. And there we'd go and we'd be, connecting with people's souls. And we're like, let's go. And the exit points were always there. And one exit point was a black hole. And the more I looked at it, I was like, fascinating. I'm like, I don't think I'm ready to go into a black hole as yet. And I had to be honest with myself. I'm like, I'm not ready
yeah.
to take that journey as
Awesome.
yet. But the one right beside it was this very light filled, but it had this like almost a slime. If you could imagine, the kids play with slime all the time.
Yeah,
It's like this slime viscous type thing that we had to like move through in order to get to back into where we
understood.
are now, right?
Yeah,
And on the other side of it, it was beautiful, it was blissful, it was the heaven on earth experience and shiny. And Aria traveled with me a lot in these experiences, and so her and I'm like, this we're gonna go through here. But it's very interesting because when you were talking earlier about Saturn and Aries and the new foundation, it's this exact thing. I think we have the
it is.
choice always. We have
Yeah,
the
we do.
choice to go through the black hole, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that's going to bring. I'll let you know, I'll get back to you.
yeah,
But I know when we go through certain portals or go through certain initiations, we are creating something new in ourselves and in the world. And then we get to experience that. So I'd love for you to touch on
Yeah.
that and
Yeah. I mean,
riff a
that's,
little.
no, thank you. I'd love that because I think the other thing is, which I know all three of us would agree with us, everyone is going to have their own unique languaging journey. And so
Hmm.
whatever I share now, that's a perspective, but it isn't necessarily truthful because in this sort of stuff, it's so esoteric. It's like some of us may want a journey into the light, whatever that means, when we
Hmm.
leave the physical. Others may want that black hole, which none of us really
Hmm.
in the
Yeah, you might.
3D understand what's on the other side. We
Right.
don't. I
Yeah,
speak
you're
for myself, I
curious. You're
don't.
curious. Yeah.
Sure. And so even when certain gurus, teachers say, oh, you mustn't go into the light or you must,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not that they're right or wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to be one of these souls in this life. I choose not to label that, which is
Yeah.
interesting because I want the freedom for you, Tom, Dick, and Fanny, as I say, to
That's
choose.
right.
Yeah.
That's
You
right.
know, so I mean, I'm naturally going to be attracted to the light, but maybe the naughty mercurial maverick in me, who
Yes.
wants
I
he
wonder.
wonder, and maybe also for me, even though I'm an Aries, if we were all together, maybe you give us a little bit more impetus to jump into that black hole and come out of the
Yeah.
12th dimension.
We
Totally.
might have
We
done
might,
that already.
who knows? This is what we say. We're
We
like,
might have
ever
done that
been to a
already.
black hole? Would you know?
Yeah,
Like, would you know?
this might very well be the black hole experience right there that we're
Well,
having.
actually, you know something? In some ways, that
Yes,
resonates with me. It
yes,
really
yes.
does. And I think the most important thing is in the next few years, we're all going to remember a lot more, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And I love it.
Oh,
That excites me. And
yeah.
the last thing that I want to touch on, because I feel like we could continue to talk
Yeah.
forever and ever and ever, and I want to honor your time. We were talking about the Saturn in Aries and the function, the new foundation that
Yeah,
we're
the structure.
experiencing, the
Yeah,
new structure. Because you
yeah.
and I, we were talking about how in this time period, with the change and collapse and maybe the unraveling, that and I feel, and I'd love to hear your take on this, I feel humanity is going to lovingly surprise me with beautiful, there's going to be so many incredible things that are going to emerge from all of this. And I'd love to hear your take on that.
Well, yes. I think for me, the most exciting thing, one of the most exciting things about Saturn, and I want to bring in Neptune as well, because Neptune is that spiritual, musical, artistic, sovereign, and mystical side with
Mhm.
the Aries, which is really radical freedom, is in our collective psyche. We human beings have actually forgotten true freedom. And
Mhm.
even for me, who came out of the womb knowing the darkness of
Mhm.
communism, I just came out that way in this incarnation to remind people that freedom is so sovereign, it's so independent. We have to
Mhm.
support the individual soul's growth. And look at the
Mhm.
child, it comes out, it's so
Yeah,
unique. You know,
exactly.
exactly. It's to me, it's just so the basic. And of
Mhm.
course, there's been so much distortion with
Mhm.
isms and stuff. But ultimately, with the Saturn in Aries, we are going to rekindle, rediscover, reignite our authenticity. Because authenticity as a frequency is much higher than love. And I'll tell you why. It's because you can't love without being authentic. Otherwise, it's codependent and it's
Mhm.
manipulated. But when you're truly authentic, warts and all, eccentrics and all, and you're standing in your true self, and of course, you're hopefully following a divine path of unfolding, not in ego or ego to self. You're an ego to the self as far as within the collective. You're
Mhm.
going to have a magical time. And that's something where I feel the community is so important. So we drill down on the independence of the sovereign self, but then we find other little jewel souls like yourselves in your community.
Mhm.
And that's how we can sparkle together. Because I can
Yeah.
only speak for myself, is I love my independence and I'm meant to be the way I am. But I do so resonate with meeting soul family. It gives me the sustenance
Yeah.
and the support in order for me to go forward in this on this path. And I know I speak for many people, and that's something I seek to do with all my retreats and the communities that I do,
Mhm.
is bring people together because I think that's what's almost lacking most
Yeah.
in this current age is everyone's so separate, and
Mhm.
we're bringing everyone home in a
Mhm.
remembrance.
Yes, I agree.
Beautiful.
I so agree. I love
Yeah.
that so much. And you do incredible all sorts of things because you touch on artistry, you have astrology,
Music as
numerology,
well.
music.
Right.
You do a lot of beautiful water healing. Can you share a little bit about that? Because
Yes.
Yes.
I really feel like this next wave as well is going
Yeah.
to really be bringing together the elements, the water, the light, the sound, and you're doing that.
Thank you. It's very exciting. The water therapy is new. It came
Hmm.
to me, started to come down in codes, light codes to me about 2 years ago, not even two and a half, 2 years ago. And in the last year, it's coming in fast. And I'm through these ancient Tibetan bowls and different crystal bowls I have, and they're all from Tibet and Bhutan. They're very unique, and Nepal. I put the patient, the soul in the body, in the water, normally salt water. I want it to be somewhat salt for its best efficacy because
Hmm.
it mirrors the blood.
Hmm.
Yes.
And so there's also more buoyancy. And I normally have someone to help support under the spine. And literally the person, once he or she trusts,
Hmm.
allows it's a womb remembrance and past life, and the spine unlocks. And
Hmm.
many what we would call diseases, of course, these are uneases, these are ancient patterns of trauma that we all hold in our body. They begin to release, and there's something rather remarkable. It's hard to use words. I become wordless when I talk about the therapy because
Hmm.
I'm very, very good with words in astrology, but this is a part of me. In a way, it's very feminine. I
Yeah.
don't know whether it's true, whether it's feminine or masculine. That's probably, but it's so innate. It's so embodied.
Hmm.
It's so. I'm going to go to Gabriel's language. It's so higher dimensions that the
Hmm.
words are superfluous.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I
And
can
and
feel
so the
that.
water therapy is, watch this space, and maybe we can do this together in the
Hmm.
future because there's something, and I like to teach people because everyone can do
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
with bowls, and with the right energy, the spine unlocks. I mean,
Yes.
any form of sciatica would totally evaporate because
Hmm.
suddenly the body is relaxed in the womb, and also let's remember that
Hmm.
sound travels about 8 times more efficaciously through water than it does through air.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. It's so powerful. Yeah, that would be magical. As you were saying that, I was having a vision of that,
The same thing.
right?
Yeah.
Down in
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we're down in Mexico. That would be really, really beautiful
Be
to
amazing.
co-create
Yeah,
something
Yes.
yeah.
like that for one of our retreats or something like that where people can come and experience that with you and have you come down because that energy and the water, bringing people back to the water, it's key right now. It's
And
everything.
I saw that vision
Hmm.
during our reading actually.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. Yes,
Um,
amazing.
I really I see it very, very much. And of course, we all have choice and to when, and
Hmm.
we allow the heavens to guide us and no
Hmm.
attachment. But you sent me an image of some people in
Hmm.
water, and it just really resonated with me. I
Yes.
mean, because Sasha Stone in some ways is the glue that allowed us to sort of
That's right.
rediscover ourselves. And he's a genius in his
Yes, he
way.
is.
He really is, and a visionary. And there's something about that part of Mexico. I don't know it
Hmm.
very well yet, but it does carry some really powerful cenote light codes, water
Yes, it
codes that
does.
I should love to explore that with you guys.
Yes, it does. The feeling always is that the light and what's happening in the water there is moving across the whole planet. That's the feeling, is that it's moving very quickly too. And so I think and I believe what we do in those cenotes, it's meant to be sacred.
Oh, for sure. It
It's
has to
meant to
be.
be sacred.
And sacredness is we're going to make the whole planet sacred again because
Mm-hmm.
that's our intention. It is all
Mm-hmm.
sacred. Of course, certain places on ley lines, of course, are going to carry more potent
Mm-hmm.
powers. We all know that. But
Yes.
ultimately, the church is the earth, is Gaia.
Yes, 100%. And I'm going to post the links where everyone can find you. But where is the best place? Because you and I were talking about you
Yeah.
started a Patreon
Yeah.
account.
Yes,
Is
it's
that
very
one of the best
exciting.
places for people to
Well,
go?
it's new, and I'm really enjoying it so far
Hmm.
because I'm actually showing a bit more of my personal life with my piano playing, and a little. It's more intimate, but
Yes.
it's fledgling. I've been doing it for 3 weeks, and it's in
Amazing.
my Patreon channel, George H. Lewis 17, and on my website, of course, georgehLewis.com. Everything's George H. Lewis,
Okay.
Easy.
Yeah.
so they can find me there. Yeah, both.
Amazing. So,
George
so
H. Lewis
grateful.
17 for the Patreon channel and georgehLewis.com for the
Thank you,
website. Yeah,
Gabriel.
perfect.
And
Thank you.
we'll post the links. We'll post it on the podcast stream as well so that you guys can find it in the show notes. George, anything else that is in your heart or coming through that you want to share before we complete our conversation for today?
Yes, just to remember that what you see out there in the 3D, in the external, is not the truth. And before a system collapses, there's always an extension of that fakeness before it
Mhm.
collapses. It always goes more into the ridiculous, more into the
Yes.
insane. Always, because that's just the law of duality and consciousness. So stay with the breath. We are our breath, and we do come in alone, and we do leave alone. And it's a tough one, that one for many of us. But
Mhm.
by working with the breath, and remember in Latin, sospiro, in Italian, breath is spirit. We work with that. We can reconnect to the divine, and just always, always try and keep your water structured as much as you can, because we are water.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. This
Such a
was
pleasure.
so beautiful.
It's
So,
been
so
real.
beautiful.
I
And
loved it so much.
yeah, and I highly recommend for everyone, if you feel called, like reach out, because that's how energy flows and moves, right? For me, I really felt called to reach out and connect. And if you have that inner pulse and call, please do that. Do something like to
Yeah.
to further your inner knowing about yourself and how things are moving, and George can help you also see astrologically what is going on for you right now at this particular point in your journey. And to me, that is so helpful. Instead of just staying in the, what's happening in the
Yes.
mess, create some movement, just create a little bit of movement, and you'll see it's very empowering and it's very gentle. And you can feel George's energy. It's very soft, it's very grounded, and it is very nurturing and clear. And so, reach out, get connected. And George, we're so grateful, so, so grateful to connect with you. I
Me
feel like we
too.
have so many more conversations to have.
I'm so grateful, and I'm really also really happy I get to meet Gabriel, because it's so nice to see you two. You're so complete together. It's a beautiful exemplar of a high functioning relationship. It's beautiful
Thank
to
you.
witness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank
saying that,
you.
George. And it's a pleasure to meet you and to have this time with you. It was wonderful. And I know it'll continue to be that as we continue to interact with time, which we definitely intend
Yeah.
to do. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much. We'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for joining us today on another episode of the Rising Consciousness Show. For more high vibration conversations, meditations, energy activations, and tips and tools on creating your most exceptional life, we lovingly invite you to connect with us at academyoflight.ca. The website is www.academyoflight.ca. It is time to create your heaven on earth experience, and we look forward to sharing this beautiful journey with you.
You're listening to Rising Consciousness, yeah.
Woo!
Woo!